Yasharala, this is your brother Dawud Daw from GMS Tampa Bay 07, coming at you with another video. First and foremost, I want to say all praises unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shah, which is the proper names in Hebrew for, God and who originally calls Jesus Christ. And I want to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone and rule well. And salutations to you, I can pushing this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth. All right, I'm going to get into this here lesson dealing with, the battle you're going to be going through, we scriptures say we wrestle with, demons and stuff like that, So we're going to just get straight into this here lesson, Lord willing that you be edified. First scripture we're going to get is in the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, and we'll start at verse 10. It says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of Yahweh, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers and rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Okay? So dealing with that alone, a lot of the times you're going to be dealing with stuff where, for an example, when you're dealing with people, you could be on your job and you might feel like you just got the worst shit popping off all the time, you might be at work and you might think your boss is extra riding you, this and that, and you're not doing anything to warrant that. You're doing your job to your best ability, but it seems like things are just always coming upon you. They always force you to do this, they always force you to do that, and so on and so forth. But you got to understand, this isn't those the bodily people that that you see in front of you. Those are just vessels for these demons to get inside of those people. To aggravate you. And try to throw you off your balance, So you got to keep that in mind, when you get certain things popping up and things like that, and this truth, you might feel like, everything is always against you, No matter what you do, you can't do nothing right. Everything's always coming against you. But you got to understand, like the scripture say, before we wrestle not against flesh and blood, It's not these people and their fleshly senses that's just trying to make your life harder, It's basically these demons and the devil that's trying to throw you off, So it says, reading that again, it says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." And this is how this is your defense mechanism right here. Verse 13, "Wherefore take on you the whole armor of Yahweh, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand." Basically saying it's going to get into it. You got to, be in these scriptures, have faith, and put up those prayers, So it says that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand, Having done all to stand, being grounded in these scriptures, having faith, putting up those prayers unto the Most High, You got to be able to do all of those things, to, be able to fight against this. Because, again, you're not fighting against, earthly vessels, You're not fighting against regular human beings, more or less to say, for lack of a better term. You fighting against spirits, and you really can't fight against the spirit in a carnal sense. You got to go into the spiritual realm and fight the spirits with spiritual warfare. Okay, and we're gonna get into the spiritual warfare. Your spiritual techniques and stuff like that. It says, verse 14, "Stand therefore, having your loins girded about with truth." Okay, and the scripture is truth. "Having the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet showed on the preparation of the gospel of peace." Okay, standing on these scripts, this is your foundation. "Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked." You got to have that shield of faith. You got to have that faith that the things that's in these scriptures, you know what I'm saying, they're gonna stand. The Most High, you got to have faith for you got to have faith in the Most High and His word. You got to have faith in what the Most High says is gonna happen. Is gonna happen. It says, "Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Yahweh." Again, these scriptures, this is like the scriptures say, roughly paraphrasing, "This word is sharper than any two-edged sword." It says, "Praying always with all prayers and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all the saints." You got to keep putting up those prayers, and also pray for your brethren. Let me see. The next scripture we're going to get is we're going to kind of briefly jump over through this real quick. This is the book of Job. Give you kind of pretty much a backdrop of, some of the things, like some of the things dealing in the spirit, We're going to try to quickly get through this. Job chapter 1. It says, Job chapter 1, verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared Yahweh and eschewed evil. And there was born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance was 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels and 500 yoke of oxen and 500 she asses in a very great household. So that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east. Okay, basically Job was set up right. He was living good. And his sons went and feasted in their house, every one his day, and sent and called their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. It was so that the days of their feastings was gone about that Job sent and sanctified them and rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offering according to the number of them all. And Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed Yahweh in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. Okay, Job basically praying for his kids because, they was going off, and, Job being a righteous man, Now there was a day when the sons of Yahweh came and presented themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. Okay, basically the devil and the Most High about to have a conversation. Again getting onto the spiritual warfare. And Yahweh said unto Satan, whence comest thou? And Satan answered Yahweh and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And Yahweh said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job? There is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth Yahweh and escheweth evil. Then Satan answered Yahweh and said, does Job fear Yahweh for naught? Okay. Has not thou made a hedge about him and all his house, and all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the works of his hand, and his substance is increased in the land. Okay. So basically here you got, Job being a righteous man, and you have the Most High and Satan, basically the spiritual demon Satan, having a conversation. The Most High asked Satan, have you considered my servant? Well, he asked Satan, where you been? Satan was like, I've been going up and down the earth, basically seeing who I can throw off, And he asked Job. The Most High asked if he considered Job, because Job, basically, like in today's modern day term, you say you're a man of the Lord and you got faith and you gonna stick it in there, The Most High say, all right, we're gonna basically, I'm gonna turn Satan loose on you. You know what I'm saying? And Satan was like, basically, look, man, you bless him with everything, you keep him all good, this and that, but he gonna wind up praising you because you're taking care of him. It's just like in the worldly sense. You got basically the ultimate gold digging chick, and she's with like the ultimate millionaire or billionaire. She's gonna always pretty much ride it out with him as long as she getting that paycheck. But Satan basically saying, but look, you take away all her resources, or you take away all his resources and she'll leave him. Basically what Satan is saying here. Verse 9. Then Satan answered Yahweh and said, does Job fear Yahweh for naught? Hast thou not made a hedge about him and all his house and all the things and all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But put forth thy hand now and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face. And Yahweh said unto Satan, behold, all that he hath is in thy power, only upon himself put not forth thy hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of Yahweh. Okay? So basically the Most High said, look, you can take all his substances and touch all his substances, just don't touch him. Okay? Verse 13. And there was a day when his sons and his daughters was eating and drinking wine in the eldest brother's house, and there came a messenger unto Job, saying, the oxen were plowing and the asses feeding beside them, and the Sabians fell upon them and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped to tell thee. Okay? And so here you basically have Job starting to catch those L's, Satan, again, we don't wrestle with flesh and blood, It wasn't nothing that he did to the Sabians or nothing like that, or, nothing like that was popping off. It was more or less that the Most High gave Satan, the power to, to deal with Job, however he pleased. And so, obviously Satan put the spirit on these Sabians to come upon and take away Job's possessions, the things that Job had, So again, it's not the Sabians themselves, it's basically it's a spiritual warfare, So Job could have, Job could have been like, oh, these Sabians trying to fuck with me, I'm gonna go fuck with the Sabians, Nah, it ain't that, As you read further on, you'll see that Job, he understood this, Verse 16, while he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the fire of Yahweh is fallen from heaven and hath burnt up the sheep and the servants and hath consumed them, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the Chaldeans made out 3 bands that fell upon the camels and have carried them away and slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped to tell thee. Okay? So, here back to back, you had 3 different dudes roll up on Job telling him about his calamities he was catching, all in one day. Job catching all these L's, he's losing all his substance left and right, And like I said, it could have been easy for, anybody in this position to basically be like, okay, so the Sabians came upon my people, I'm about to go take it out on the Sabians because maybe they had beef with me or something, or the Chaldeans, But again, it's not these people that's doing this. It's not of them, if you was to ask them why they doing it, why did y'all choose Job, they couldn't tell you, it was something in the spiritual realm, It says, while he was yet speaking, there came another, hold on, Salakia. And while he was yet speaking, there came another and said, thy sons and thy daughters was eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. And I am only escaped, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. Okay? So then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshipped and said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. Yahweh gave, and Yahweh hath taken away. Blessed be the name of Yahweh. And all this Job sinned not, nor charged Yahweh foolishly. Okay? So, again, speaking in the fact that we wrestle not with flesh and blood, Job understood here, it said, basically Job, kind of went through an emotional sense, like any real human being would, you're catching all these L's at one point in time, you'd be going off to sit here and think that all this stuff would be happening to you and you wouldn't even be moved, to just like, to even like, just to be moved in any kind of way, But the important part here was, it says, first of all, it says Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground, So that was him going through his emotional stuff. But the important part where he didn't sin at was, it says he worshiped and said, naked I came out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. Yahweh gave, and Yahweh taketh away. Blessed be the name of Yahweh. Okay? So again, he's still here, praising the Most High. He worshiping the Most High. And it says, in all this Job sinned not, nor charged Yahweh foolishly. Okay? So instead, some people like, man, I'm catching all these L's and the Most High, doing whatever, those type of things, Basically, he didn't charge the Most High foolishly, He just took his L, and he kept the faith and just kept enduring, Jumping over to Job chapter 2. And there was a day when the sons of Yahweh came and presented themselves before Yahweh, and Satan came also among them to present himself before Yahweh. Then Yahweh said unto Satan, from whence comest thou? And Satan answered Yahweh and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And Yahweh said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth Yahweh and escheweth evil? And still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou hast moved me against him to destroy him without cause. And that's a real important part. He held fast his integrity, Job was basically like, like the scripture said, he didn't charge the Most High foolishly, he basically went to the spiritual realm, he said, look, naked I came into this world, naked I'll go out, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh, basically, the Most High is righteous in all that he do, so I can't sit here and charge the Most High because things ain't going in my favor how I would see them to be going, you just gotta, how you say, endure, you got to just endure that, and just take that, And also that's something, for other people around you, other brothers and stuff around you, looking in, You might not know what that person's lot might be, this or that, and you can't, how does it say, you have to hold your integrity. You know, you got to understand sometimes the Most High might be bringing a certain person through certain things for certain reasons. You know, you might not know, but you can't go and, you know, afflict and oppress a person because of that reason. You know, somebody could, you know, somebody could be going through any kind of thing. You know, and you just can't be trying to hold that against that person because you're not in that same scenario. You know, so in this sense, you know, Job then lost his kids and all his substance and stuff like that, you know. And if you was, you know, one of Job's brethren, you know, and y'all supposed to be doing the work, let's say, you know, you and Job, or you're Job's boss, you know, and you know, obviously Job had his own deal going on, but let's say you was Job's boss and Job's going through all of this stuff, but you don't want to sit there and try to take that into consideration, the things that he's going through, you know, and you want to put a heavier burden on him over some stuff that he's not even in control of, you know. You know, that you ain't supposed to be doing no stuff like that. You putting a heavy burden on your own brother, and when, you know, the things he's going through, he's not even in control of that. You know, it's happened to be because the Most High is you know, is dealing with the things he's dealing with. You know, more or less to say, you know, you can't quite fault Job because now all of a sudden he gotta, you know, double up on the things he's got going on because, you know, basically because he's catching his hell. You know. Job going through his afflictions, you know, he said he rent his clothes and all this and that. You can't come up to him and be like, oh man, you need to stop bitching up this and that. Well, you know, the scriptures say he didn't charge the Most High foolishly, you know. Of course he's gonna go through his so-called emotional stuff because, you know, he's lost all his kids, he's lost all his substance and stuff like that, you know. This is verse 4. Let me read back at the bottom of 3. It says, and still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou hast moved me against him to destroy him without cause. And another thing, see, Job was going through this, you know what I'm saying, not because of anything Job did as far as, you know, him so-called going off. Job wasn't going off to be able to catch these L's like this, you know. And again, for, you know, somebody to be around Job to sit there and charge him like that, well, you'll see about his friends, you know. His friends will basically be trying to charge him as if he's going off, you know. He'll be like, Job, you need to get your shit together. You need to go do this and go do that, you know. Putting an even heavier burden on him when, you know, throughout it all, you know, it's just basically he's catching these L's through the spiritual realm, you know. It says, verse 4, and Satan answered Yahweh and said, skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath will he give for his life. But put forth thine hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. Okay? Basically saying like, you know, torture a person and they'll give you the, you know, like America does. They start waterboarding people, bring somebody, you know, touching them in the flesh, you know, then they start giving up all kind of information, you know. They break under pressure. Verse 6, and Yahweh said unto Satan, behold, he is in thy hand, but save his life. So basically, you can touch his body, just don't kill him. So Satan went forth from the presence of Yahweh and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot unto his crown. And he took a potsherd and scraped himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes. Then said his wife unto him, dost thou still retain thy integrity? Curse Yahweh and die. Okay? But he said unto her, thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What shall we receive good at the hand of Yahweh, and shall we not receive evil? And all this did not Job sin with his lips. Again, you know, Job is basically, he's on his integrity, you know, he's understanding that, you know, basically the Most High is just putting him through something at this point in time, you know. His wife is like, look, man, you catching all these L's, you need to, you know, the stuff that Job is going through is starting to bother everybody else around him, is making them uncomfortable, you know. But just think about how much more Job is feeling uncomfortable, knowing not only that he's catching all these L's, but now he's making everybody else uncomfortable, and now he got to, you know, he's got a burden from them that they putting on him. You know, his wife is over here like, look, man, you know, basically, you know, in layman's terms, it's like, look, man, you fucking up my life. My kids is gone now because of some shit you got going on, you know. Why don't you just stop and just curse the Most High, then maybe all this will be over with, you know. We can get back on to what I got going on, you know. But, you know, Job basically is saying, like, look, thou speakest one as the foolish woman speaketh. What, shall we receive good at the hand of Yahweh, and shall we not receive evil? You know, sometimes you're going to be up and sometimes you're going to be down, but you can't be looking down upon somebody because they going through a bunch of ruts and just simply cast them off as far as, you know, um, they going off somewhere, they doing this or they doing that. Now, granted, if you are going off, that's a little different. That's where rebuking and reproving come into place. But sometimes at the same time, you just be catching, spiritual chastisement and stuff like that, and it's not good for you to sit there and just look upon that chastisement and think there's something wrong with that. You might want to examine yourself, because the Most High said He chastises His sons, basically, And if you're not catching them L's, but then another brother's catching them L's, and you over here putting burdens on to him, there's a lot of scriptures that go into that, talking about like this is not your rest, and the Most High is going to give us rest and stuff like that. You got all this time, and you got a lot of time on your hand, and you upon another brother because that other brother's always busy. You might want to examine yourself. The Most High say, look, this ain't your rest. I mean, and if you say He's gonna give you rest, that means you don't really have time for a lot of stuff. You always busy. You looking for rest. If you're not being oppressed, then what do you need salvation from? Salvation, you're gonna be saved from all your enemies that's oppressing you. But if you're not being oppressed, again, you need to examine yourself. You got to look at this stuff in a spiritual sense. It says, now, verse 11, now when Job's 3 friends heard all the evil that was come upon him, they came everyone from his own place. Eliphaz the Tenamite, Bildad the Shushite, and Zophar the Naamite, and they had made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and to comfort him. And they lifted up their eyes afar, and they knew him not, and they lifted up their voice and wept and rent everyone his mantle and sprinkled dust upon their heads towards the heaven. So they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw his grief was very great. Okay? So, you have Job's 3 friends here, They came to come and comfort Job in his calamities and stuff like that, And if you was to read further on, these 3 friends, they so-called come to comfort him, and in their mind, but Job is understanding this thing through the Spirit, and they're gonna basically tell him like, look, you doing something, whatever you're doing, we'll put it to you in today's terms, You put your hand towards this plow, you're gonna start catching some hell, And let's say a worldly friend or somebody in the world that might know you might just be like, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but all of a sudden I'm starting to see things start to change for the worse for you, But they're not gonna understand that, the Most High is chastising you, reproving you, refining you, and bringing you through the fire. He's building you up, They don't see that, but then yet these same friends, they wind up basically they putting more and more stress on Job. Job's already, if you could put yourself in this mindset, think about the things you would be thinking about at this point in time, man. You done lost all your substance, you done lost your kids, and now you're dealing with bodily ailments and sicknesses, right? So you're dealing with all of that stuff inside your mind, all that's plaguing you. Now you got your friends, they just added on top of that, man. I don't know what you're doing. Maybe you need to stop with that cult stuff that you in. Maybe you need to stop going out there and doing this and doing that and worshiping these strange gods or whatever, So these friends, or these people in the world, or you have to just be observant of the people that you're around. You got to keep certain things in mind, understand things in the spiritual realm, because it's easy for somebody who's not looking through things in the spiritual realm to give you some kind of advice that don't quite add up, that don't quite add up to, certain things that, you're going to be dealing with, like, what this lesson is going into. You're not wrestling with flesh and blood, you're dealing with, spiritual things, basically like, the curses you're going through, the scriptures basically say, you basically not going to be well off financially in a lot of ways. You're going to work and you're going to work for wages and put them into a bag basically as if it got holes in it. Or you're going to basically build a house and you're not going to live in that house, You're going to be building up stuff, but you ain't going to really have nothing for your own self, And, for somebody to sit there that's not looking at it with spiritual eyes, to sit there and be like, man, why don't, people could tell you, like, maybe you need to save up your money and do this and do that or whatever, whatnot, They don't see those curses. They don't understand those curses. So if you're taking advice, from a person who's not understanding things in a spiritual sense, and the things that's going on that the Most High is talking about in this, like I said, in a spiritual sense, then you might cut yourself short, You're over here thinking that, again, let's say for your income type of deal. You thinking, you seeing these worldly people over here, they how you say, they prospering financially, they making big money or whatever, whatnot, Well, you gotta understand, like that, there's gonna be a turning around, Those people that's up on top right now, they rejoicing right now, but they're gonna be crying later, And while you over here crying now, you're gonna be rejoicing later. So don't keep your spiritual eyes on, more or less to say, Stay in the spiritual realm. Getting back into the scripture, this is Job chapter 3, and dealing with, how Job was feeling, he was feeling, how he was feeling it, emotionally and things like that, But in all of this, Job didn't sin, he was down and all that, he was feeling all some type of way and stuff like that. But at the same time, you got to endure all of that, okay? Job chapter 3. After this, opened Job his mouth and cursed his day. And Job spake and said, let the day perish wherein I was born, and the night in which it was said, there is a man shall conceive. Let the day be darkness. Let not Yahweh regard it from above, neither let the light shine upon it. Let darkness and the shadows of death stain it. Let a cloud dwell upon it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. As for the night, let the darkness seize upon it, and let it not be joined unto the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Let that night be solitary. Let no joyful voice come therein. Let them curse it that curse the day, who are ready to raise up in the morning. Okay. Let the stars of the twilight thereof be darkened, and let it look for light, but have none, neither let it see the drawing of the day. Basically, Job is just saying, in a couple different verses, all the same thing. Basically saying, like, man, basically fuck the day I was born on, He's just going through an emotional type of thing right now, and there's not nothing wrong with that. Obviously, being a human being in the flesh, you got all these type of calamities going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, Job, like the scriptures say, Job was righteous. He was an upright man, but still yet he's going to have an so-called an emotional reaction. He's only so-called human being, He's going to be moved by certain things like that, you're supposed to love your kids and stuff like that, and your kids just get taken away from you like that and put to death. You're not going to be saddened, But verse 10, because it shut not up the doors of my mother's womb, nor hid sorrows from my eyes. Why died I not in the womb? Why did I not give up the ghost when I came out of the belly? Why did the knees prevent me, or why the breast that I should suck? For now should I have lain still and been quiet, and should have slept, then I had been at rest. Okay? So basically, Job's saying, why wouldn't I, like a stillborn, or why didn't I die at birth, Then he would have been at rest, and that's something deep right there. Then he would have been at rest, So that's letting you know how Job was in his mind and the things going on with his mind. Like, he's just being plagued, And if you was to be around Job in the world, some of the people might be like, man, you always down. You always got a problem. You always got something going on, man. You always upset. You always down. You always mourning. You always blue, Well, Job was going through something spiritually, and again, from this example, Job didn't go off, So, this is something to how do you say, examine yourself on, when you coming up upon, brethren in this truth, for one, they might be going through a lot of stuff, Obviously, that's what we're going to be going through, But don't put that heavier burden on them, It's like, if you was talking to Job, like, man, I don't want to hear about all your bitching, man. I don't want to hear about all of this. You always got something to complain about. We all going through our own thing, You're supposed to be exhorting your brother and building your brother up, You're not supposed to be trying to add on top of his burdens, Because, again, we wrestling, basically with demons and stuff, It's not nothing on a spiritual sense. Maybe you could have just paid off the Chaldeans or the Sabians and things would have been all right. Nah, it was something spiritual, It was something out of his control. He can't control that, This is something that the Most High had going on. And how can you stop what the Most High had going on? Well, you're going to tell the Most High, look, don't bring these calamities on me and this and that, because it's putting a burden on my brother, and because they don't want to see me all upset and stuff like that, You can't do all that. You just gotta, like Job did, you basically just gotta endure through all of that, He says, for now, verse 13, for now should I have laid still and been quiet, I should have slept. Then had I been at rest, with kings and counselors of the earth, which built desolate places for themselves, or with princes that had gold, who filled their houses with silver. Or as a hidden, untimely birth had I not been, as infants which never saw the light. There the wicked cease from troubling, and the weary be at rest. Their prisoners rest together and hear not the voice of their oppressor. Okay. For time's sake, I'm going to just, not keep reading on down. But basically, I wanted to read chapter 3 because of the fact of, showing Job's, how Job was, if he was to be around Job and stuff like that, because, it's easy to speak with your own mouth and be like, man, you need to man up, you need to stop complaining about this and that. But, you're going to be going through stuff, and this is a perfect example about all these things, And if he was going off for being, dealing with the things he was going through, it would have spoken there, and it said Job didn't sin, especially in none of all this stuff he was going through, But we're going to get into another precept real quick and then try to close this out. It's the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 13. But he that shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved, okay? And, we read this all the time. He that shall endure unto the end, But you have to understand what that what you're going to be enduring, if you just think that if you can just basically stay alive until the end, you got to endure a lot of things. You got to endure these plagues. You got to endure these demons. You're gonna be you wrestle not with flesh and blood. You have to be able to endure all these things that like Job went through. You can't just and it's easy. Like I said, it's easy to say this stuff, but you know what I'm saying. It's hard to actually go through this. Put yourself in Job's shoes. How many of you brothers could have went through all the things Job went through and still maintain the integrity to keep putting your videos up every week, keep going to camp every week, and not have none of that stuff affect you, It's easy just to say, that shit don't bother me. I don't need to be going through that. I'm telling you, if you could just try to visualize the things that would be going through, and try to put yourself in those shoes, try to see it from, another perspective, But, this is why it says, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. You got to, put up those prayers, go to your brethren, and try to get some, some comfort in your brethren, and for your brethren that your brother might be coming into you, how do you say, comfort your brethren, Don't just sit there and be like, let's say if Job was coming to you, and be like, man, stop all that whining and complaining and keep pushing the truth, at least comfort him, You could come out with some scriptures, be like, look, Job went through this, you got to endure, such and so forth, if you need something, things get hard, the pressure get up, call me, talk to me, and Lord willing, we can get through this together, But don't throw that extra burden on your brother. He coming to you with these plagues and sorrowful and all this and that, and, he might be to the point, I don't know, Ak, if I'm going to be able to make it through today. It's just so much stuff going on. Then you reply, look, man, I ain't got time for no crybabies and this and that, and, man, with all that crying bullshit and weeping and mourning, that's going off, because the scriptures say, those that, the saints basically cry out to the Most High, the saints that are crying out, they sigh and they cry, and part of that is, obviously, you only get to that point when you fed up with certain things, when things is really bothering you, and if you ain't going through all that, then nothing really bothering you, everything is all good, Jump into this next scripture. This is 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 5. But watch thou in all things, okay? And, for the lesson that we're dealing with, we wrestle, not with flesh and blood, but, with principalities and spirits and, basically we're fighting with demons and stuff like that, So it says, but watch thou in all things, For one, put your spiritual eyes on. See if something is you might just have an asshole at your job who just want to be an asshole, and is just fucking with you, But you got to have your spiritual eyes on, Most of the time, man of the Lord, you're going to be dealing with not just, you're not going to be dealing with so-called assholes. You're going to be just dealing with vessels wherein demons have hopped into those vessels to basically throw you off, you know. You have to be able to discern between the two, you know. You got to be able to discern when, you know, somebody that, you know, for the same instance, you know, I was just speaking about, you know, an asshole at work, but you could have somebody that's supposed to be close to you, dear to you, you know, like your parent, you know. You can have like your mom or somebody like that who might be trying to give you so-called good advice in her perspective, but you have to be able to watch through all that and be like, okay, maybe this is just a demon getting into that vessel that's giving me some advice that would throw me off, you know. You know, you can have you know, you can have your mom. Here's a good example. You know, you can have your mom telling you, you know, you work a lot. You should go out and go buy you a new car. You know, something nice and fancy, this and that, because you deserve it. You know, and which, you know, that kind of sounds good in a carnal sense. You know, to anybody who, I work a lot, I should have nice things, this and that. You know, but you got to understand it in the spiritual sense. You know, man, I'm already plagued with these burdens of working all the damn time, and the way to fix that is to go get something, you know, brand new that's going to put me into a heavier burden. I don't need an extra burden like that, you know. I'm content, you know, with the vehicle that I got now. You know, if I go get that nice new flashy car, now I got a higher car payment, you know. But you have to be, like the scripture say, watching all things, you know. Okay, you know, yes, this is somebody close to me that so-called loves me, this and that. They wouldn't want to so-called give me bad advice. But also I do know that, you know, with my hand on this plow, there's going to be a lot of demons coming towards me in any vessel that they can, you know. And being that I've already cut off, you know, being out in the world and stuff like that, you know, those vessels is, you know, harder to inhabit to come and fuck with you, you know. Let's say in the world beforehand, you used to hang out with a crew of guys and this and that, you know. You always around those vessels to be inhabited. Now you're in this truth and you didn't cut them all off, you know, and, you know, now you might just be at home with your wife or your old lady and you go to work and then you go do this truth, you know. So now the only vessels that's around to sit there and plague you and be inhabited to plague you would be the people at work and your wife at home, you know, because you're not out with your homeboys no more, those other vessels. So you have to, like the scriptures say, you have to watch, you know. It says, but watch thou in all things, endure afflictions, you know. So this is what they talking about there. He that shall endure, same shall be saved, you know. Endure afflictions, and afflictions, what afflictions are we talking about, you know? Again, you're not dealing with flesh and blood, you know. You're dealing with spiritual beings. So these afflictions could be in all kind of things. It could be in your body, like we just read in Job, you know. He was plagued in his body. He was plagued with his family. He was plagued with you know, tangible things and substance and stuff like that, you know. So these demons can hop into any and all kind of vessels, you know. You could be plagued you know, your car always breaking down or something like that, you know, or you just went and put new tires in your car. As soon as you leave, now you got a nail in the tire, you know. You have to be able to endure all those things. You can't just, like, you know, flip out and, you know, just go on off. You know, oh, this is too hard for me. I can't do this, do that, because I'm tired of catching all these L's, you know. You can't. That's charging the Most High foolishly, because basically you're saying He gave you something too hard to handle, you know, which it might seem like it's too hard to handle, but that's why you have to endure and have that faith, you know. He's not going to give you something more than what you can handle, but then at the same time, He's not going to bring you so-called problems that you can see from a far distance at face value. Oh, yeah, that ain't no problem. I can handle that, you know. I ain't no problem. I can handle that, you know. It's like, you know, He's not going to basically give you in this analogy, you know, He's not going to knock over a little shot glass when you have a big towel. You know, He's not going to knock over a shot glass and you have a big towel to wipe it up. That's, you know, that ain't no big problem. I'm not really worried about, you know, whatever liquid was in the shot glass, because that's not going to really cause much damage, you know. But, you know, it might come as a flood like Hurricane Katrina, you know. It might come in big like that, but, you know, he's going to make sure you're going to be able to handle it, you know. It might be a big Hurricane Katrina flood, but now you got, you know, He didn't provide you with a raft or high grounds and stuff like that. He's just, you know, testing you in certain, He's building you up in certain ways, you know. Verse 5, it says, but watching all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, make full proof of thy ministry. Okay, you have to sit there, like I said, you have to, you know, you have to endure, endure these afflictions, You have to endure all these things. You got to keep catching these L's, Like the scriptures say, this ain't your rest, You're going to be catching L's all the way until you get that salvation. So you got to endure all the things you're going to be going through, whether it be in the flesh or whether it be, in other items, you know what I'm saying? You could be, like I said, you could be catching bodily ailments, being in the flesh, or you could be catching so-called non-fleshly things, like your job could be plaguing you, your car or bills, anything like that, I could have just went forward. Okay. We're going to close this one out on this one here. It says, 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 10. Therefore I endure all things for the elect's sake, that they may also obtain the salvation which is in Yahushua HaMashiach with eternal joy, eternal glory, Salakia. Okay? So, to close this out with that, I endure all things for the elect's sake, You might be going through some plagues for the, the elect to go through, so you can't always just think about it as, you going through this for your own self. You got to, like the scripture say, you got to watch therefore, you got to look, you got to be able to discern certain things, Sometimes you might be going through, like Job. Job could have been going through all of that for our edification's sake. The scriptures say all things that was written aforetime was written for our learning and basically our edification, more or less to say, So, Job had to endure that for us today, So, this thing is bigger than just you, You can't just think about it for you and your own self, You basically on the team and you pulling for the team. And if you got to sit there and be taking the L for the team, then, pray to the Most High that He give you the strength to endure, and also the faith to endure, But with that, we're going to go ahead and close this out. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. Until next time, I want to say, Call Halal Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shah. Double honor to the apostles and elders of great millstone that rule well. And salutations to you, Akim, pushing this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth. Shalom.